Have you ever wondered about the true meaning of life? What is it that we are truly seeking in our daily pursuits? Is it about chasing comfort, success, or fleeting pleasures? We often find ourselves caught in the relentless pursuit of material gains and momentary joys. In Luke chapter 9 verse 24, Jesus challenges us with a radical proposition: "For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it." This statement invites us to reflect deeply on our priorities and the essence of our existence. These words may seem paradoxical, but they hold the key to a life of true purpose and lasting fulfillment. They challenge us to look beyond the surface and seek a deeper, more meaningful existence. Jesus invites us to a life less ordinary, a life marked by surrender and sacrifice. This is not about giving up on life, but rather about embracing a higher calling. He calls us to lose our lives for His sake, to find true life in Him. This means letting go of our selfish ambitions and desires, and instead, living for a purpose that transcends our own. This is not a call to self-deprecation or a life devoid of joy. On the contrary, it is an invitation to experience a joy that is profound and enduring. Instead, it's an invitation to a life of deeper meaning, a life lived not for ourselves but for something infinitely greater. It is about finding fulfillment in serving others and making a positive impact in the world. It's about trading our temporal desires for an eternal treasure, a life hidden in Christ. This eternal treasure is not something that can be measured in worldly terms, but it is of immeasurable value. Are you ready to discover what it truly means to lose your life for Christ and in doing so, find it? This journey is not easy, but it is the path to true fulfillment and everlasting joy. The path Jesus calls us to is not always easy. It is a journey that demands courage, faith, and perseverance. In a world obsessed with self-preservation and personal gain, where the noise of ambition and the clamor for success are ever present, losing our lives for Christ goes against the grain. It is a call to live counterculturally, to prioritize the eternal over the temporal. It requires us to swim against the current, to stand firm in our faith even when it feels like the world is pushing us in the opposite direction. To embrace a different set of values, values that are rooted in love, humility, and service. To walk a path less traveled, a path that may be lonely at times but is filled with divine purpose. The world tells us to chase after our own desires, to seek wealth, power, and status, to prioritize our comfort and security above all else. It whispers that happiness is found in material possessions and fleeting pleasures. But Jesus calls us to a higher standard, to a life that transcends the superficial and touches the eternal, to a life of selflessness and sacrifice. He challenges us to give of ourselves to serve others and to love unconditionally. He invites us to die to our selfish ambitions and embrace His plan for our lives, a plan that is far greater than anything we could imagine, even when it means choosing the narrow path. This path is not without its difficulties, but it is also not without its rewards. This narrow path may lead us through valleys of hardship, where we are tested and refined, and over mountains of challenge, where our faith is strengthened and our character is built. But it is on this path that we discover the true meaning of life. It is here that we find joy, peace, and fulfillment that the world cannot offer. It is in losing ourselves in Christ that we find our true identity and purpose. We become who we were always meant to be. Are you willing to step onto this path, to take the first step in faith, to embrace the challenges and the triumphs that come with following Christ? The journey may be tough, but the destination is worth it. Losing our lives for Christ begins with a daily surrender, a willingness to die to our selfish desires and embrace His will. It's a conscious choice to put aside our own ambitions, our need for control, and our desire for comfort. Imagine a tiny seed buried in the cold, dark earth. It seems to have lost its life, its potential. But within that seeming death lies the promise of new life, of growth and abundance. In the same way, when we die to ourselves, when we surrender our lives to Christ, we become fertile ground for His transforming work in us. This death to self is not a loss but an exchange. We trade our old self-centered life for a new life, a life filled with His love, joy, and purpose. It's in this surrender that we discover the boundless grace and unconditional love that only Christ can offer. Are you ready to let go of your self-centeredness and allow Christ to plant the seed of His love in your heart? The Apostle Paul's life is a powerful testament to the transformative power of surrendering to Christ. Once a fierce persecutor of Christians, Paul had a radical encounter with Jesus that changed everything. He abandoned his old life, his ambitions, and his prejudices to become one of the most influential figures in the early church. Paul's life was marked by hardship, persecution, and sacrifice, but it was also a life filled with purpose, joy, and an unyielding faith. He wrote, "I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me." Galatians chapter 2 verse 20. Paul's story reminds us that no matter our past, no matter our mistakes, surrendering to Christ has the power to transform our lives. It's in losing ourselves in Him that we discover our true calling and experience the fullness of life He intends for us. Like Paul, are you ready to let go of your old life and embrace the transformative power of Christ? Embracing the paradox, finding life in letting go. The concept of finding life by losing it might seem counterintuitive, even foolish to the world. But it's in this paradox that the true beauty of the Christian faith resides. When we let go of our tight grip on our own lives, when we surrender our desires to Christ, we open ourselves up to a life more abundant than we could ever imagine. It's like diving into a vast ocean. At first it might feel daunting, even terrifying, to let go of the familiar shores of our own understanding. But once we take the plunge, once we surrender to the depths of His love and grace, we discover a world of wonder and beauty beyond our wildest dreams. This is the paradoxical journey of faith, finding life in letting go, discovering our true selves and surrendering to Christ. Are you ready to embrace the paradox and dive into the depths of His love? The cost of discipleship, are you willing to pay? Following Christ isn't always easy, it comes with a cost. Jesus was clear about this, telling His disciples, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Matthew 16:24. This call to discipleship requires sacrifice. It might mean letting go of relationships, dreams, or possessions that hinder our walk with Him. It might mean facing opposition or persecution for our faith. It might mean choosing the difficult path when the world beckons us with an easier way. But the cost of discipleship pales compared to the eternal reward it offers. In losing our lives for Christ, we gain something far greater: intimacy with God, purpose in our suffering, and hope for eternity. Are you willing to count the cost and embrace the sacrifices that come with following Christ? A life of purpose. Living for something greater. In a world saturated with self-promotion and fleeting pleasures, it's easy to feel lost, adrift in a sea of purposelessness. But when we surrender our lives to Christ, we discover a life of purpose that transcends our own understanding. No longer are we living for our own glory or chasing after fleeting achievements. Instead, we are living for something much greater than ourselves, the glory of God and the advancement of His kingdom. Our lives become a reflection of His love, a testament to His grace. This newfound purpose infuses our everyday actions with meaning. Every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, every effort to make a difference in the world becomes an act of worship, a testament to the transformative power of His love. Are you ready to embrace the purpose that comes from living for something greater than yourself? The promise of eternity, trading temporal for eternal. Our time on earth is fleeting, but the impact of our choices echoes into eternity. Every decision we make, every action we take, has a ripple effect that extends far beyond our immediate surroundings and momentary experiences. Jesus reminds us in Luke 9:24 that those who cling to their earthly lives will ultimately lose them, but those who surrender their lives for His sake will save them. This profound truth challenges us to look beyond the temporary and focus on the eternal. Surrendering our lives for Christ means letting go of our own desires and ambitions and instead aligning our will with His divine purpose. It is an act of faith and trust, believing that His plans for us are far greater than anything we could ever imagine. This is not just about physical death, but about the state of our souls for eternity. It is about living a life that reflects our eternal destiny, a life that is marked by love, sacrifice, and devotion to God. When we choose to lose our lives for Christ, we are making an eternal investment. We are choosing to prioritize our spiritual well-being over our earthly comforts and pleasures. This investment is not without its challenges. It requires us to step out of our comfort zones, to face trials and tribulations with unwavering faith. But the rewards are immeasurable. We are trading the fleeting pleasures of this world for the enduring joy of being in His presence for all eternity. This joy is not dependent on our circumstances, but on our relationship with God. We are choosing to invest in something that will outlast time itself, a relationship with the God who created us and loves us beyond measure. This relationship is the foundation of our eternal hope and joy. This eternal perspective changes everything. It shifts our focus from the temporary to the eternal, from the material to the spiritual. It gives us a sense of purpose and direction, guiding us in our daily lives. This perspective frees us from the fear of death and empowers us to live with boldness and purpose, knowing that our true reward awaits us in eternity. It gives us the courage to face life's challenges with hope and confidence. It frees us from the fear of death and empowers us to live with boldness and purpose, knowing that our true reward awaits us in eternity. It gives us the courage to face life's challenges with hope and confidence. Knowing that our true reward awaits us in eternity, we can live each day with a sense of peace and assurance. We can face the uncertainties of life with a steadfast heart, trusting in God's promises. Are you ready to trade the temporal for the eternal? To invest in something that will last forever? This is the ultimate decision we must make, a decision that will shape our destiny for all eternity. To invest in something that will last forever, we must be willing to let go of the temporary and embrace the eternal. This is the path to true fulfillment and everlasting joy. The call to surrender, will you answer? Jesus' words in Luke 9:24 are more than just a religious teaching. They are a call to action, an invitation to a life of surrender, sacrifice, and ultimate fulfillment. It's a call to die to ourselves, to embrace the paradox of finding life and letting go, and to live with an eternal perspective. This call isn't for the faint of heart. It requires courage to go against the grain, to stand apart from the crowd and to embrace a different set of values. But the rewards far outweigh the cost. In surrendering to Christ, we discover true life, a life brimming with purpose, joy, and an unshakable hope that transcends the trials of this world. So the question remains, will you answer the call? Will you choose to lose your life for His sake, and in doing so, find it?